One thing that I was going to try to do before I found this article that actually meant nothing at all was try and find some of the reads that people do, like at actual auditions in California. There's sites on here. It just says some more stuff. 18 ways to stand out in an audition. 10 audition tips. Well, let's just do audition reads. Okay. Top 10 cold audition reads, free download. Free monologues for acting auditions for men, women, and kids. Monologues, that's what they're called. Now, a monologue, it says, what is a monologue? It's basically just a quote that's the size of a paragraph done by a famous person. It's telling me how to write a monologue. Choosing a monologue from a published or play, is it overdone? Is there some examples? Okay, male monologues. I've never done this before, I'm just sort of seeing what happens. Okay. Ace your audition. No, picked up late when I was 14, never looked back. Okay, hold on, I know what to do now. Free monologues online for auditions. This one's in the dailyactor.com. Free contemporary monologues. Oh, I actually have one. Do you want to know what it is? I got it from the movie Mallrats. I've had it since I was about 16. Like in case a director ever asked me, do you have one? Like on the side of the street or something. It's a scene with, I don't even know the characters' names in real life, but it's a scene from the movie Mallrats, and it goes, how did I go from hot flirting sex with Brandy to managing to coiled debate with you in the food court? The cookie stand is not a part of the food court. Of course it is. The food court is downstairs, the cookie stand is upstairs. It's not like we're talking quantum physics here. The cookie stand counts as an eatery, and eatery is part of the food court. Eateries outside of said designated square don't qualify as the food court. Anything inside the said designated square is considered, anything outside of said designated square is considered an autonomous unit for mid-mall snacking. It's not like we're talking quantum physics here, something like that. Anyways, it's a good movie. It's got tons and tons of awesome dialogue, so that's just mine. But it's basically a scene from a movie, and then you just sort of repeat it. Choose one that's telling me how to select your monologue. It's not even a site giving them. If you can always read blah, blah, blah. Okay, monologues for movies. Yay. Okay, quick monologue tips again. Okay, it's showing me, okay, here's 12 Monkeys with Brad Pitt. Trevor lives a mental asylum, doesn't believe he's insane. Now, I don't know how this goes because I've actually technically never been in front of a director that says, I need you to do a cold reading. But Now this Jeffrey character apparently is Brad Pitt, and everybody's seen 12 Monkeys, right? So I guess there's a scene in it, and I don't remember it, but it's saying, he goes, who cares what? Who cares what psychiatrists are? Oh, who cares what psychiatrists write on the walls? I think I told her about the 12 Monkeys impossible. Know why you pathetically ineffectual and pretend friends and adults. I'll tell you why, because when I had anything to do with her 6 years ago, there was no such thing. I haven't even thought of it yet. Okay, so I usually rewrite shit, to be honest with you. I don't know that that's weird to you, but if you are Brad Pitt, and you're being told basically the Jeffrey tried to explain to other patients what he's going through, and it says Jeffrey lives in a mental asylum and doesn't believe he's insane. So probably a better approach if you were a director and you wanted somebody to sort of give you an idea about what it is they're capable of. And you just say like, can you do a guy from a mental asylum that's really trying to get a point across to somebody that's completely crazy? And you're just like, yeah. So you got to be like Brad Pitt, right? And you just be like, well, they have dialogue. So it's like, who cares what psychiatrists write on the wall? You think I told her about the Army of the 12 Monkeys? Now that's like, I'm kind of embarrassed actually. Impossible. Know why you pathetically infectious and polysalamous pretend friends to animals. I'll tell you why, because when I had anything to do with her 6 years ago, there was no such thing. I hadn't even thought of it yet. Here's my theory on that. While I was institutionalized, my brain was studied exhaustively in the guise of the mental health. I was interrogated, x-rayed, studied thoroughly. Then everything about me was entered into a computer where they created a model of my mind. They all stare mesmerized at the strutting Jeffrey. Is he serious? Is he crazy? Doesn't matter. He's charismatic. Then using the computer, Jeffrey says, then using the computer model, they generated every thought I could possibly have in the next, say, 10 years, which they then filtered through a probability matrix to determine anything I was going to do in that period. So you see, she knew I was going to lead the Army of the 12 Monkeys into the pages of history before it ever even occurred to me. She knows everything I'm ever going to do before I even know it myself. How about that? Now I have to get going, do my part. You guys check all of this stuff out and load up the van. Make sure you have everything. I'm out of here. So I guess technically, one of the things that you could probably do is what it is I just did, because I actually could. Now it's something that I'm able to do, but I mean, you start to project that you're living in a moment. So it actually, because I have all of you on camera, I could see directors, and so they were just like, yeah, that. Now I guess what you're witnessing is technically is the ability to articulate. So really. Positive thing that we're noticing right now, if you're going to audition for any part, is if they give you a cold read, go ahead and study your way through it. Pretty much every single person that ever goes into any cold read besides the actors that are living there is always going to fall on their face. So being uncomfortable and showing your true colors is really one of the things that they expect. So one of the things that I did in the wake of falling on my face was using something that's naturally going to be there every time if they were going to hire me in the first place, which is my ability to read fast, my ability to articulate, and just trying to stay cool about it. I thought I was gonna, be able to memorize it and then sort of repeat it, but I wasn't. And then I thought I was also gonna be able to expand on it, which I sometimes do, which I didn't. So it was really just one of those things where still turned out fine, mainly because, in acting, whenever it is that you're in a movie, the real deal is they give you a microphone piece, and then there's somebody that's reading it, and they're already the one that wrote it, or at least partook in the writing process, so they believe in it, and their enthusiasm comes through your microphone, and you just basically have to be somebody that can duplicate it, usually about a second or 2 seconds after they're saying it. And then it's something that for instance, if I say like, please say this, you say, please say this, and then you have a natural ability to say it in the same emphasis. So it's a sort of a Pentagon-style X project sort of mystery that is unsolved, and I'm just here to tell you that's the way it all happens. And once they basically invented the microphone, they stopped making musicals and operas, and they started making movies based on this new invention of being able to read over here and then transfer over here. And plays are still looking a little funny and a little off on acting based on not having that one capability. And so really the first thing that happens is somebody reads to your ear in the first place. So the fact that I can technically read it is basically the same thing as acting. If you can articulate it, if they're reading it and you can't pronunciate it, then obviously you wouldn't get the job. So you gotta just take lessons in reading a book, but you know what? Read it out loud. Make your tongue formulate, and then, maybe you'll start noticing that you can read or talk better. There was one thing that I did want to talk about while we're here is the common concept of something that is 100% never talked about in any commercial or movie. Now it's the common first date. Now, this is something that I wanted to talk about mainly because the only thing and the only way that I was raised was asking a girl out on a first date. Now, because I'm an identical twin, I had a particular level of expectation. Now, not only from my parents, but from my brothers and sisters, from my neighbors and my friends from school, and from my teachers, from my principals, and everybody basically that I ever meet. There's just something where people say, I want to see him on the movie screen someday. Now, it's not because they're proud of me, and it's not because they want what's best for me. It's because I was just that likable in the first place. It's because when I left them in their existence, their life was sadder than it was before when I was next to them and around them. So based on this, there's the natural way of me living in a life unknowing to really not really being fully aware of this as a kid, but what I did get was the constant notion of when there was a girl in the room. Now, ever since I was a little kid, I've been going to certain venues and conventions of some sort of people meeting someplace at some time. Now, if it was school, then it was in my elementary school, we would go as an entire group of classrooms to Skateland, and then another school would be also told to meet that school there, and then all of their kids and all of our kids would be skating at the same Skateland sort of layout. It was basically a lot of arcades in the carpeting area, and then a lot of places to sit down, and then the snack bar, and then there was the roller rink. Now, basically from a small age, from a young age, I was always, just doing whatever it is I was doing, talking with friends, and I don't know why, but I always had a girl walk up to me, or I should say skate up to me, and say, and it's the same thing every time, my friend thinks you're cute, and she was wondering if during the next slow song, you would skate with her. And I say, yeah, sure. But I would make sure I look. I mean, I was picky. Wasn't just gonna skate with anyone. But the funny thing was they always never really disappointed me. There was a really pretty girl sitting there. She was always really, really quiet and totally nervous, and that's how I was raised. And then we would hold hands, and then we would, during the next slow song with the lights different, and the strobe light in the center, just go around other couples, and you just skate slowly, and then well, when it was over, I just remember this little soft hand just skating off. You talk, sure, when you're skating, you say, what's your name? So-and-so. What's your name? So-and-so. That's cool. So where do you live? Oh, so-and-so, such and such place. Oh, okay. And then sometimes you keep talking, sometimes you don't. Things go pretty much that simply. Now, as I got older, when there wasn't any Skateland and there was going to be a pretty girl, technically I was taught by the pretty girl on how this goes. And I don't think that she was, because there was always a different girl. It wasn't ever the same girl, not even one time. And I went, to Lehigh Elementary School, and it was basically 6 years of doing this in our school. I always participated in it. It was a really nice Skateland. And never ever the same girl twice. Now, it was always this way, but I instinctively, whenever I was out, at any sort of event, birthday party, reception, anything to do with a large group of people, I would see a girl, and I would walk over, and then usually if she was with a group of people, I would say, hey, can I talk to you for a second? Oh, yeah. And we would walk over to the side, and I'd just go sorry, I just thought you were pretty, and what's your name? And then she would say, I'm so-and-so, and she would go like this, and I would say, I'm Curtis. And then I would just basically, literally go through a list of basic common questions of, so who are you here with? And then she goes, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, no, my friends are over here. And then I would say their names. And then, now, Sometimes if I wasn't in the same mood as I'm always in, I would just be like, if this is true, I would just be like, this sucks. Or you say something that's obvious. If there was a band playing, it's just like, that band was the worst thing I've ever heard. Anything that's obvious, but don't do it like you would just stating the obvious. Don't say that band sucks, huh? You have to emphasize it with, you have to genuinely believe that that's what it is you're feeling. And that's key, because they want to know that you brought your house to the event that she's at, which means she's not going to get a liar. She's not going to get somebody that's going to hurt her in a week. She's going to get this person that's acting real the first second she saw her. And that's something that's hard for a girl to find these days. So I learned that instinctively over a lot of attention, a lot of individual conversations and interactions with girls. And these girls were basically caliber of being on some sort of model magazine. Now, you basically just go ahead and just then say, how old are you? Oh, and she says this and she says that. If you don't want to do this and be like, I'm your new best friend, usually the common thing that you say after this is, I was wondering if you wanted to go out sometime and I could get your phone number? And when you say it like that, she'll usually say, oh yeah, sure. And then she'll say, do you have a pen? Don't have a pen. Go find one, for Christ's sake. And then, she'll just go ask, I don't know how many times I've ever asked a person behind a register to press that little button on the receipt thing, and it goes, zzz. And then you should be like, right, and then you bring it back, and you just go like, what's your name? And then she'll always say when you're doing it, she'll be like, write down your name and number. Now, where I come from, this is more of a responsibility, because when I get there and she's there, and when Skateland was there and I didn't even notice her, but she noticed me, I just saved her the step of the chaperone of Skateland that would have put me in a sitting position to talk. I save her that step and just go ahead and walk over to her. So, usually it's something that I do everywhere I go, and I have been doing that for years now. If you're at a club and there was a really, really hot girl in a huge group of people, then you walk over to her and just say to yourself every single time, she does not want to be around any of those people. I don't know why. Now, the other thing to consider if you're ever going to try to do this is there's something that happens also that you may want to take into consideration, where when you're walking over there, now you have to understand whenever you're feeling nervous, there's something called, well, you know what the mathematical equation is. So even though your impulses are screaming one thing and your thought process is screaming one thing, try to stay with what the mathematical equation is. Now sometimes, based on my upbringing, and I know how this is going to end, I will ignore a lot of thoughts when there's a lot of people everywhere, of, oh my God, she's so hot, she's way out of my league. And sometimes the blonde hair and the bright eyes and the makeup and what she chose to wear makes her feel like a living star, and you're not wearing anything bright and happy. You're just you. But in my history, I have hit points. And it is a mathematical surety. And so I have these, and it's not every time, but there are times where there's these thoughts that enter and that usually aren't there, but they are sometimes. Now I wanted you to recognize these thoughts so that when you hear them and they're just like, she's just better than you, she's so hot, or oh my God, she's gonna say no. And every step is she's gonna say no. Well, just tell yourself that the mathematical equation is perfect. You're just gonna say, can I talk to you for a second? You're just going to say, hey. And this is something that you always will find fun if you ever want to try it. But you actually make them like, come here. Like you've met them from when she was a kid or something. And then she'll always be like, sorry. I just wanted to talk to you, but I knew you wouldn't be able to hear me if I was talking to you around your friends. But I just thought you were really pretty. So I was just going to ask for your name. What's your name? And then she'll tell you and say, I'm Curtis. And then say like, Anyways, I'm totally involved with all of these people, and I know you are too. But when this craziness goes away, I was hoping I could call you sometime, and maybe we can just go out for dinner or something. Oh yeah, sure. And then she'll just write down her number. Now, girls are a quick judge in everything about guys because of whatever reason. Every girl probably would say a different story, but she'll judge you on your face. She will. And it'll tell her everything that's on the inside. It's pretty much a pedigree issue. And she'll say yes just based on a cover judgment. And you'll get that phone number. So that's just something that I was going to prep everybody if they were like wondering, like, what do I do when I want to go out with girls on a date, but I'm just not good at talking to girls. Well, get the clothing right, work out, and then just walk over to her and tell her she's pretty. Tell her your name, ask her her name, and then say, can I ask you out on a date and maybe we can go out sometime, and get your phone number. Get her phone number, wait 3 days, call her on a weekend, and then go out. If she doesn't answer, call her the next night. If she doesn't answer, call her the next weekend. If she doesn't answer, wait 4 weeks. So, I thought you might find this interesting.